Ready.
Welcome to the Mouthy and Mindful Show, where opinions are loud, facts are louder, and silence is not an option. I'm Rod the Historian, bringing context, receipts, and a reminder that history always has something to say. And of course, we know Miss Alabama Disgrace herself, unfiltered, unapologetic, and never afraid to say what everyone else is thinking. Together, we're mouthy enough to challenge it and mindful enough to understand it. So I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to just kind of explain to themselves who they are, and we'll see if we can get the ball rolling. All right, Miss Alabama, do you want to start?
Hey, everybody. Everybody knows me as Alabama Disgrace, but my name is Alicia. You can call me either. I'll answer to anything. I'm here because I wholeheartedly support Dr. Will Boyd. I know that Alabama is ready for progress, ready for change, and I feel like he's the only candidate that can bring us that. So we're here tonight to let the rest of the state know who he is and have a good conversation with him.
Oh, that's outstanding.
All right, Bama Blue Dots.
All right, so I'm Kat. I am one half of the Bama Blue Dots podcast with this girl right here, Michelle. So we started this podcast, and this account was toward the end of last year. We had the opportunity to actually interview Dr. Will Boyd a couple of weeks ago on our show, and just so impressed by him. I feel like we spent hours talking to him and were just blown away. So thank y'all so much for having us do this. I have been wanting to do something like this with y'all for a while.
Yes.
All right.
Hey, everybody. I'm Michelle. I am the other half. Kat is correct. We're very involved here locally with our Baldwin County Democrat Executive Committee at the county level and at the different districts. We're just trying our best to make sure candidate voices get heard. You know, we don't always have the resources nor the funds to have these multi-million-dollar campaigns. Most of our stuff, if not all of it, is grassroots, and that just requires all of us doing as much of the lift as we can. So that has been our goal, is to ensure that we do our best to spread the word.
All right. That sounds phenomenal. All right, and without further ado, Dr. Will Boyd, how are you, sir?
Fine, sir. How are you?
How's
everybody?
Dr. Boyd.
Hello, my friends. How you doing?
We're great.
Good.
Good.
Thankful for you for joining us tonight and letting everybody get to hear your voice and conversate with us and let them see a different side of you.
Yeah.
Oh, my. Okay. All right.
I'm going to try not to cut.
Is there a side that hasn't been seen yet?
With me, they've seen everything.
I said, we've seen you at Mardi Gras.
That's right. You saw me at Mardi Gras.
Before we get started, I do want to drop just a couple housekeeping rules. If everybody that's in the comment section will please tap that screen, share the live so that we get this out in the algorithm. And when we start asking our questions, Dr. Boyd, if you could kind of try to keep them under 3 minutes, your answers, so that we can get through all our questions. And then if we have any time, we can go to our commenters if they've left, a question that we didn't touch on, if we have time.
If I'm giving 3-minute answers, something's wrong. You all need to.
Where'd Rod go?
I'm here. All right, are we ready?
We're ready to get started. Let's go.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Boyd.
Good evening. How you doing, sir? Ma'am.
Well, thank you. So, as voters evaluate their options in this race, what do you believe uniquely qualifies you to serve as governor of Alabama? So I guess what I'm asking is, what distinguishes your leadership, your experience, or your vision from other candidates?
If you look at my website, my platform, you'll see that I pretty much lay out a plan for everything that I intend to do. My first year, I've laid it out in many ways by 30, 60, 90, 180, 365, what I want to do, days in office. I've also not only presented a plan, but I presented outcomes. I presented contingency plans. And I think what makes me different is that I'm someone who's worked in a community. I've worked with organizations. I've taught at the community level, but also at the business level and even collegiate level, what's important, what's necessary to cause businesses to thrive, to make sure that hospitals operate efficiently, and also that people in the community feel safe and they feel like they're stabilized.
Excellent. All right.
Okay, sorry. Alrighty, so I actually want to expand on something that we had discussed on our podcast. I asked you about why Republicans are pretty consistently letting the people of Alabama down. But we didn't talk about why they keep getting elected. Obviously, Alabama has done many things to make voting difficult and disenfranchise minorities, working people, etc. But does it run deeper than that? Is there something within our state's culture that keeps people coming back to a party that is actively trying to harm them?
I don't know if it's so much about the party on the right doing something that's like some magical spell over anyone else, as it is Democrats not really getting out to vote. I've noticed a lot of apathy. A lot of people feel like their vote doesn't count. So when we don't have Democrats getting out to cast a vote, we're pretty much giving up. We've heard from John Merrill, a former Secretary of State, that Alabama is really a blue state. So if we see more Alabamians showing up voting for their interest, you'll see where there'll be a turn in policies. There are a lot of Republicans, independents, libertarians, and I can go on with the different groups, Democrats, that are all saying they want change. And so what I'm bringing to the table is something different. I'm saying to each and every group, I'm coming in as a governor who's going to look out for all of your interests, not trying to push a Democratic Party interest. But as I move forward with my Democratic background, it will eventually help everyone. It will lift everyone in the state of Alabama. So again, it's just strong jobs, it's healthcare, it's the community. I think we have to talk more about kitchen table issues. And when Democrats, as sometimes as smart as we can be, as it relates to policy, we talk over people's heads. So I think when we start just explaining simply what we want to do in basic terms, people will be more apt to get out and vote and believe in us.
Absolutely. So I'm going to get into the working class issues. The average rent price in the state of Alabama is around $1,450 a month, which we know the wages here, that's not affordable. So is there anything you can do after being elected as governor to alleviate that strain on the working class and make housing more affordable, more accessible?
I understand Alabama is one of a few states that doesn't even have a minimum wage. That ought to tell you something right there. We need to make sure ultimately we move towards a livable wage, a wage that truly helps families succeed. It's tough whenever you have a family, let's say one parent or two, trying to take care of children and they can't afford daycare, or they're trying to decide between medication and meals. Affordability is a big issue. I know some people personally on the campaign trail who had apartments that may have been $800 a few years ago, and now they are $1,400. So something's going wrong. The cost of living is increasing, but we're not seeing adjustments in income. So we have to see where jobs come in to play that are not just a higher skill set, but a higher pay, so that we can have more take-home pay to bring back home. When you don't have the proper adjustments, or there aren't higher paying jobs available, and the cost of living continues to escalate, to climb, education is out of reach, so people can't go back and get or obtain more degrees. When you have regressive types of grocery taxes and other taxes that are out there that are disproportionately hurting people with less disposable income, they're falling further and further behind. So even tacking on to the previous question, I think parties have left the people of Alabama behind, and it's time we have someone in office who's looking out for the interests of the people. So as governor, yes, I can push to make sure we do something about the minimum wage, make sure that affordable living is part of the equation, work to make sure we stabilize our communities, and partner with even groups and agencies outside of government to make sure that happens. Ultimately, it comes down to the legislature making the vote and of course, referendums from the people. But long story short, as governor, I can lead the way, lead the charge by stating what I believe will help the people of Alabama best.
I guess it's my turn next. Okay. Good seeing you again, Dr. Will Boyd. So as people know, the governor essentially serves as like the CEO of the state, overseeing the executive branch and the agencies like public health, transportation, human resources, and corrections. The governor also appoints agency heads and administration and sets administrative priorities. how would you manage these agencies to ensure an accountability and measurable performance? And in your first year in office, are there specific structural or operational changes you would implement to improve how state government functions?
Mhm. Of course, when we look at jobs in the economy, there is, of course, unemployment. We can look at metropolitan statistical regions. We can study, examine what takes place in each one and what we need to do to get out to improve labor in those areas, labor outcomes. When you look at hospitals and you see that uncompensated care is at a level that's causing anywhere between 25 and 40% of hospitals operating in the red, that's something we can measure. We can measure how many people are without health care. And you hear me when I talk about expansion of Medicaid, how many we can have taken care of by way of health care. But when it comes down to things like community stability, let's use the Alabama Department of Corrections or my talks about overhauling the prison and reform system. I proposed on day 360, really 365, between the last 5 days of the year, I want to have a dashboard that is up that will actually show how many incarcerated citizens are in prison, how many returning citizens may be going back to a community, how many incarcerated citizens may be in the pipeline up for parole, how many facilities may offer educational or even mental health opportunities for inmates, which ones do not, and how we move accordingly to make sure everyone has equal shots, equal opportunities of getting out and being able to be on parole when their time comes, et cetera. So I'm an engineer. My undergrad degree was mechanical engineering, so I'm a data person. Numbers are important to me. So as governor, as the chief executive, I'm going to be looking at the numbers. And if I don't see where the numbers speak to the issues or see where we are showing improvement, I'm also a person who's big on continuous improvement. I could talk about a lot of systems that I employ as an engineer, as a manager, but those same type methodologies will be what I use to make sure Alabama is at peak performance in every area, every department I oversee.
Excellent. So, Dr. Boyd, you're open about your commitment to your faith. And as you know, with this current political system that we find ourselves in, some voters across the country are, concerned when people in public office are leading with their faith. How would you reassure Alabamians that you want to uphold the constitutional rights of all citizens, including those of different faiths or no faiths at all, while serving as governor?
I've told people from day one, I'm not trying to become the bishop of the state of Alabama or the pastor of Alabama. I'm seeking, obviously, to become governor, and that is it. My faith may guide my personal decisions. It may guide the way I think. I've written a book about values, beliefs, light leadership versus dark leadership. My faith, my values, my beliefs would not lead me to engage in what I call dark leadership, where you take advantage of followers for personal gain. But on a bigger level, I would say Alabama has seen where people have used religion as a tool to legislate or as a tool to enforce something that may hurt somebody. And so I don't believe that you should use religion as a weapon. And I've said that from day one. I will flip and say in a different way, Alabama doesn't need another prosecutor or another lawyer, in my mind, to sit in this chair right now. It's a time to have someone who does not put people in jail, but someone who works to transition people out of prison, someone who works to stabilize communities, someone who's every day working with people at the hospital, working with the homeless, trying to make sure people have a shot at something that is fair. And so that's what pastors do. That's what bishops do. I'm not ashamed of that. That's who I am. But I'm also a Christian clinical therapist. I'm also a mechanical engineer. I'm also much more than that. I have a number of degrees I don't talk about. I just don't like talking about myself. But I found it very interesting that my Wikipedia profile has recently been reduced to a parental candidate and a pastor. People love to say things like, I'm afraid if you're in office, you're going to bring your pastoral beliefs in and cause problems in government. And I quickly explain what I do every day, and they get excited and say, you're the one. So I just think people have some negative opinions about, again, what they've seen other religious leaders do. But will be clearly a separation of church and state and an opportunity for someone who is a public servant a servant leader to step in and lead Alabama forward.
Outstanding. And I wanted to follow that up because, we see places like Oklahoma and Louisiana where they're forcing, the Ten Commandments or some sort of Bible in the classrooms. As governor, how would you approach questions involving religious expression in public schools while also trying to respect the constitutional boundaries of like local control?
Just like I said, again, as governor, my role is to govern. My role is to oversee the branches of government. If you want to call it, have different roles: legislative branch, judicial branch. But in the executive branch, I'm maintaining oversight of the different agencies or different departments that were mentioned earlier. Talking about the Alabama Department of Corrections. Legislators will shape that policy that you're referring to about whether or not there is some type of, I don't know, a cell phone being used in a classroom, or whether or not we stand or sit during a Pledge of Allegiance. That's what legislators would actually work to determine what the people want. And then the governor, of course, there's that executive order. There's that veto power for an chief executive, whatever the organization may be. They have the final say, she or he does. But generally speaking, going into this role again, my role is to just make sure Alabama offers opportunities for all. It should be a hope state, not a hate state.
Hey.
Everybody should be included. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has become to some a bad acronym, but I think it's something that we need in our state. We embrace any and everyone, but at the same time, we don't force our particular beliefs on other people.
And before you get started, Michelle, I do want to say, I don't know if most people know this, I am an a-religious person. And once I figured out Dr. Boyd was the candidate that I was supporting, I sent him a message because that was of high concern for me. Would he be able to keep religion out of politics and the governing of our state? And so he firmly reassured me, and I followed his campaign. And so if I, as an a-religious person, can trust him to govern us in an equitable way, I just want to encourage people not to let that hold them back from supporting him.
And thank you so much. And if I could, I'll just say a lot of people on my team are atheists. A lot of people on my team have different religious views. Again, that's what Alabama looks like.
Yep,
So,
that's right.
so we don't need to try to change even my leadership team. I want my leadership team to be reflective of who we are right now moving forward. So I'm grateful for all of the volunteers, all the people that reach out to me, ask me questions, send them to me, keep it coming. You all have to help me with something. You all told me we're a little laid back, so I didn't put on the bow tie, the necktie, and all that kind of good stuff. So you all have to be laid back with me. That's the agreement, right? So this is I'm just Will, and you all, we're just having a little discussion. So you all free to jump in, all jump on me, beat me up at once, whatever you want to do, I'm here.
That's right. We're going to have a good conversation.
Yes.
Michelle, you want to go?
Yes, ma'am. And I want to piggyback on that. I too asked him that question, Alicia and Rod, was, hey, knowing what's going on in the government with all of this crazy Christian white nationalists, that's made a lot of people gun shy. I hear you're a bishop. How's that going to play out? And well, you are fantastic answering that question. It was nice having that like an open conversation around, your position about weaponizing religion, and, that wasn't your goal at all. And what your personal beliefs were and your faith were not going to be imposed or reflective in, indoctrination or trying to take scripture and make it into policy is probably the best way to put it. And that is very much appreciated considering how diverse we are, not only as a state, but as a nation. So
I thank you. May I jump in for a second and just say, these are just some general things I would say. And if we're just talking, I know whatever I say can be used against me, and the microphone's always hot. I get it. But, people use the Bible to justify slavery a long time ago. And so we have to be very careful when we just allow people to jump in and quote a scripture and verse without context, or impose what they think is a particular belief on a group of people without doing a proper, what we call eisegesis or exegesis, just taking scripture in or out of context. And again, everybody does not know scripture. So again, the important thing is to talk to people where they are. Uh, the original intent, when we talk about, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not a person who perhaps has spent more time in the Constitution than all of you have together. But the little time that I have spent and the little time that I read about, even the time in which a lot of this was being framed, the framers didn't desire to have the state favor one religion over another. So the separation of church and state then was more so to keep the state from trying to single in on one religion and saying this is the one you have to go after. So it's a little different now because of the weaponization. You hear a lot of people turning it and trying to say, well, I'm imposing this on you because, and that's not the way it should be. It has left a lot of bad taste in our younger generation. And the church doesn't look today the way it did decades ago or even a few years ago, because a lot of hypocrisy is seen right now. People say one thing and do something totally different. So one of the things I talk about is being WYSIWYG, and that's part of the computer terminology that we use from the engineering point of view, especially when we're encoding or when we're dealing with computer terminologies. And it just means, again, what you see is what you get. What's on the screen, you don't have to question what's behind it on the back end. This is who I am. And I'm the type person who just wants to make sure everyone has a shot. Everyone is treated fairly. And that's what I do even in the church. I don't judge people based on what they look like, what they smell like, where they came from, where they slept the night before. It's all about how can you leave a better person? And that's what I want people to feel about Alabama. We're not a backwards hate state. I keep saying we're a hope state. We're not a state that's going in the wrong direction, but we're a state that, again, wants to embrace all. I think when that is truly magnified, illuminated based on me being governor, I think you're going to see more people attracted to Alabama, more people coming back to the South and saying, you know what, we want to move back and be a part of the work that's going on.
Love that.
Absolutely. And that kind of piggybacks into my question here. And my actual question is, over the last, few years, especially this past year and into this year, we've actually seen multiple bills introduced that critics would argue are performative and aimed at national political signaling rather than solving Alabama-specific problems. As governor, how would you discourage performative legislation that consumes taxpayer dollars and legislative time?
Again, the legislature, they're the ones who propose the bills. In 2025, the legislative session, I mentioned some time ago that there were 969 bills that were proposed. That's a lot. I have Senate bills and House bills in front of me right now with the one-line summaries and what chamber they're in and how they're moving along. But when the legislators bring what they believe is important, and that makes it to the floor, of course, out of committee, and is voted upon, obviously, you know the process much better than I do, what happens. But I will say this, when we see where something is not going in the direction of people as governor, I would step out and say, wait a minute, we may need to do something different. A case in point is with HB 445. I spent some time in Montgomery last week as it related to the hemp ban coming out of 2025. 1,000 businesses were closed. 1,000 entrepreneurial spirits were crushed. $1 million of revenue was cut off. That being said, we can't go back and reverse what the legislature has done, but I can come back with a legislative session. I can come back and use executive influence. I can come back around and use what we call legal action, looking for injunctions similar to Texas, Indiana, and New York to help move in a different direction. I could come along and make sure people are promoting advocacy and ways they bring people to the table, patients, farmers, physicians, people who own businesses, and then talk to the legislators about what's going on, what the good, the bad, the ugly may be, and then move in a different direction. And then ultimately, it gets back to the ballot box, to the people, and they are able to make the final decision. Again, I believe you put it in the hands of the people. People are smart. We love to, for whatever reason in government, assume that people don't know anything. People are smart. They're watching what we do. Let them vote on what they want. Let them lead the way in what needs to be done. Same is true with the educational lottery. It's of course banned by the current Constitution, Article 4, but Section 65. But we have to get 3/5 of the legislature, again, the House and the Senate, to move towards allowing there to be a constitutional amendment. Then we have to have a statewide referendum. Here we go again, ballot box. The people decide, and we move in the direction that people want to go. And then as governor, I'm still involved. I'm coming along saying, based on what the people said, here's how I can execute this. Here's a team that I'm going to have to make sure we accomplish this in so many days, so many weeks, so many months.
Oh, good. Back to my working class stuff.
Stay on it. Stay on it.
So in Alabama, women currently earn 77 cents for every $1 that a man earns. Women make up over 50% of our state population. How do you feel about closing that gap and advancing pay equality for women?
I've been advancing that particular clause. I'm glad you brought it up as with the other questions. Since 2016, I referenced the International Association of Theater and Speech Employees. I've spoken to them in Huntsville. I've met with different people in their organization for years. I've even spoken at one of their regional meetings. They're probably one of the best organizations that has closed the gap between men and women, making sure that men and women receive equal pay. And so I love partnering with organizations that think that way, but it goes steps beyond that. You have to question why it is that women are treated the way they are in Alabama. Step further, over 314,000 African-American women during just the 3-month period of 2025 lost their jobs. And that hit our GDP and even the national GDP in the billions. So whenever we see women not making the same pay as men, not only is that unfair from a gender perspective, but we're talking about a major hit to the economy. So we have to promote fairness in the workplace at every level, making sure that people receive the same pay for the same work.
Outstanding. So, Dr. Board, where does education rank for you amongst like priorities for Alabama, and how would you prioritize, education in your first term, if elected?
My dad was a superintendent when he retired of a school district. My mother served as a teacher and a nurse. My brother, my middle brother, I call him that, but he just retired last week. He served as the youngest superintendent in my home state and even just retired being at the higher learning level. My wife taught, I taught. I was a dean and a professor. Most people don't know that. I spent a lot of time in education. I also served as a chancellor for a institution, and beyond that served on the board of regents, which means I had to shape educational policy. To answer your question directly, Rod, it's important that education is part of every pillar of my particular campaign, and also my goal to move forward with Alabama, what I'm calling my policy for stronger jobs, affordable health care, safer communities, all involves stronger jobs, having more educated workforce.
Yes.
As it relates to healthcare, we need more educated people in the healthcare systems. And as it relates to the communities, we need educational equity across zip codes. So to sum it all up, I believe when we have an educational lottery in place, bringing anywhere from $800 million to $1 billion in revenue, new revenue to Alabama, that is going to, as we commonly say, Rod, you said it with me on the campaign trail, stop us from educating Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, and Florida children, but we'll be educating our very own Alabama students, and that will get us a step ahead. We'll have a better skilled workforce. More of our Alabamians will be able to jump into the jobs that are being created in Alabama. As it relates to health care, we'll have better health care outcomes. We'll have more opportunity to see more nurse practitioners, midwives, more OBGYNs, particularly in our rural hospitals where our women are suffering from at a high rate maternity mortality, and our children infant mortality, and also we call FTT, failure to thrive as children. And then ultimately in our communities, we want to see what I'm pushing for by 2027. first year in office, I want 97% of the state covered in broadband. And this is so our kids don't go to Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's to actually get on the internet or get access to broadband. They can do their work at home and succeed wherever they are. And ultimately, this lifts our state. So education is really number one, even though I come up with these three pillars or arrive with these three pillars every time I talk. Without education, you don't have it. I push, lastly, I'm running over my 3-minute mark, what I call a student success plan that was given to me by the dean before me. And from him, his doctoral studies of Tinto, it's called Preparedness and Connectedness. It spreads across the whole state for me. When we prepare our students, you're an educator, you know this. When we prepare our students, making sure they have good grounding with reading and math, and then make sure they have connectedness, opportunities to meet with people in their career fields. Maybe like Leisha, making sure they have psychology or psychologists or therapists around them, or people who understand the Department of Mental Health, what is involved with their career. They can go in a particular direction. Maybe it's real estate, Catherine. So people can learn more about real estate, know what a realtor does, know what it means to add to housing inventory. And when they get this type of education, again, better workforce, Alabama has better opportunities.
Would you say, Dr. Boyd, that education it would solve the bulk of the problems here, investing more into education?
Absolutely. You know what? I'm just being me tonight. I'm being laid back. People love to say our state, I'm sorry, is in many ways has people who are racist. I would argue is more ignorance at a lot of levels. And sometimes when people don't understand one another, they don't understand your journey, they don't take time to learn why you do what you do. It's not that they hate you, it's they have probably a fear of you because they don't want to identify with your struggle or your journey. And so, yeah, education from the school part, scholastic part is important. It's the root cause of a lot of problems, the lack thereof. But as we educate, again, our students, as we expose our students to a worldview, as we allow people who are in business to not only strive to do well in their Alabama counties, but help them succeed on an international level. This is education, creating incubators for businesses to flourish in Alabama, giving them exposure and seeing what competitively other states are doing. As we educate not just children, better educate our teachers, better educate our business leaders, the whole state moves forward in a totally different direction. Again, it's that, not to sound like I'm quoting scripture, but that lack of knowledge is what's causing our state a whole lot of problems right now.
Absolutely agree.
I agree. Ms. Cat, you can ask next because he actually answered my follow-up question.
All right. So aside from an education lottery, there really aren't a whole lot of things that Democrats and Republicans in the state agree on right now. But something like 80% of people are in favor of an education lottery. Mm-hmm. But there is one thing that, aside from that most working class Americans do overwhelmingly agree on, and that is they have a disdain for money in politics. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In a perfect world, all campaigns would be funded solely by small grassroots donations from private citizens, etc. Mm-hmm. But that's not the world we live in. Right. While many people are totally against PACs, they are an unfortunate necessity to succeed within our current system, it seems like. My question is this: have you ever accepted any PAC money? If not, would you ever?
Absolutely. Every union that is out there, they have to work through a PAC, a political action committee, to actually move money. I think people have a misunderstanding about what a PAC is. I know you don't, but I know even if I created an entity to help me raise money, it could be considered a PAC. You can have a PAC or a super PAC. You could have, an educational PAC, a labor PAC. Now, people have problems when it comes down to perhaps a PAC. And you know what I mean by that, when people are receiving money from APAC, not A like A space PAC, but I'm talking about a particular entity that may show perhaps a desire to do one thing that concerns people and maybe alienates others. So no, there are PACs that I will not take money from. I've received one check. I've had it for months. Did not even take it. That's a small, minuscule check. Not insulting anyone. Never cashed it. Just put it off to the side because I don't want to take money from anything or anybody that I don't understand until my team does the research on who they are, what they do. Their interest is moving Alabama forward, not putting people under the bus. Then I'll cash a check. But no, I'm proud to say that our campaign is funded pretty much by small donors who donate on average perhaps $25, maybe even 26. In some cases, if you look at different numbers, different platforms like Act Blue, we're higher than that. I've heard recently the Hakeem Jeffries talk about the fact that his campaign was raising so many dollars per person. Small donations, what he was bragging about. I'm right there with him, same level. Now, granted, I don't have the same numbers that he has, but I'm proud to say we're right in line with where we need to be in terms of donation sizes. But if a PAC came along, let's just say a labor PAC, and said we want to offer you 5,000, 10,000, sure, absolutely, I would accept it as long as I agree with what that PAC stood for.
Okay. Awesome. So specifically, would you ever accept money from a foreign lobby or a foreign?
Absolutely. No, ma'am. Absolutely not. No.
Awesome. Love
Let me
that.
interject
if I may, I'm sorry, who did I cut off? But
It was me. Go ahead,
Alicia,
Dr.
no, Alicia, your words are much more important.
That is a lie.
No, now you're coming a politician. Those are fighting words. No.
I was just going to say, while we're talking about this being a grassroots campaign, if those in the comments section, if you would go to Dr. Boyd's website so that you can donate, every dollar helps.
Yes.
Every single dollar. So please donate to the campaign because it is us, just regular, everyday people funding this campaign.
Yes, it is. And I appreciate every one of them. Someone today donated $1 and I responded, I'm very proud of that. I'm very happy about the $1 because they didn't have to do that. They were a state employee and they chose to donate. And I'm thankful for that. That was a huge step. They didn't have to do that. That could put them in the sights. Somebody else gave 1,000 last week as well. I appreciate the 1,000, but I appreciate the dollar just as much. We don't know people's income. And Alicia, this is the hard part for me. Of course, leaning back into what I do outside of politics, when I see people struggling and I see people who I know personally barely make it, but they try to pull a $20 bill out their pocket and say, take this, put it in your campaign coffers so you can keep spreading the good word. That hits me hard. I want to give it back. So that's what happens all the time. There are people who are saying on the streets, I have a little jar I carry with me. Of course, I talk about Act Blue and Cash App, and they get hit whenever I'm traveling and tell people where to go to the website, drwillboyd.com to donate. But again, it just amazes me of the sacrifices people are making for this campaign. Now, I'm nowhere close to other candidates on the Republican side, but I'm proud. I'm excited for the amount of money we have and what we're doing. I've run, no secret, a few times, and I've been able to become, when I ran, the nominee. That means in every regular statewide election that I ran, I became the nominee in every regular election. Even the regular statewide primaries that I ran, the primary that I ran in 2022, I won every county. And I did it with little or no money. I did what I'm doing now. I just bounced around in my car, somebody's truck. We walked, we knocked on doors. And that's the way I believe it should be. If you can sit at home and just sit on $8 million, $10 million, or sit in Washington and never talk to the voters, never get out and explain your platform, I just think that's a disservice to the people. And that, again, is treating them badly. That's not giving them, even refusing debates. I have asked repeatedly, over and over and over, when are we going to have a debate? And I guess I have to write a press release to get it out to the media for them to finally do it. But the citizens of Alabama deserve to hear in a contested primary, and even as we get to the general election, a debate. I'm sad to say, when I ran as nominee for U.S. Senator, Lieutenant Governor, and for Representative, There was not one debate between me and the Republican, even though I asked for it. Would you buy a car without shopping around? Would you? I know if you're in an emergency situation, you'll walk right into an emergency room and get the help that you need first. But would you really consider having a major operation or surgery without first counting the cost or looking at who specializes in that area and what their success rates are? Then why do we just blindly say, I want to go with the candidate because of name recognition or how much money they have in the bank? That is very foolish. That's about like buying a $40,000 car because of the emblem on the front. We don't know if it has an engine under the hood. We don't know if the carburetor works, the fuel injection system works, pistons, engine, whether anything is even in order. We're just buying it because of the label. That's what we do in Alabama. And that's why we remain stuck with the same older people leading Alabama in the wrong direction. It's time for new leadership. It's time for people who have bold, fresh ideas to move our state forward.
Hell yeah, I agree to that. Before you go, Michelle, I do want to say, Alabama Progress, if you will drop the link to that petition, we currently have a petition going around demanding a debate in the state of Alabama with the gubernatorial candidate. So if you'll drop that in to make sure everybody sees that and goes and signs that petition. There it is. All right.
Thank you, Alabama Progress.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so the governor has significant appointment power, including selecting agency directors, members of boards and commissions, and appointing judges when vacancies occur. Those decisions can shape policy and public trust for years beyond a single term. What criteria will you use making those appointments, and how will you ensure that those individuals are both qualified and accountable to the people of Alabama?
I've talked a lot about what I call my TAR approach. Doesn't sound good, does it? TAR, transparency, accountability, and responsibility. I want leaders who are transparent. You can look and see, as I keep saying, WYSIWYG, who they are. I want to see people who are the same on the ball field with their children, shopping in the mall, as they would be perhaps in the halls of government. You want people who are accountable, people who have demonstrated that in their business dealings, in their own affairs in life, for their home, their family, they have been good stewards. They've been accountable. They're showing that they care for those who are under their trust or those that are under their wings. And then there's responsibility, people who understand that we are responsible. As the chief executive, I'm responsible first, but anybody that I'm appointing, anybody that I'm recruiting to bring in to put into a spot, they're sharing that responsibility with me. And so I need people I can count on, that I can trust. I don't need any weak links. Now, going to, again, the Alabama Department of Corrections, or going to a parole board, rather than 3 people, I propose like 7, 1 for every congressional district. I propose having people on such boards that are representative of our state. So rather than just a legislator, or rather than someone who may have some experience that relates to, I don't know, criminal investigation, a prosecution, let's have someone on there who may have been an incarcerated citizen, has now become a returning citizen. Maybe we put someone who's a school board member, or someone who's an educator, healthcare worker, someone who can relate to what's going on behind bars, or someone who can relate to what a victim may feel like if someone were released. We have to start having true representation of the people, and I think that's what we're missing. So that's what I'm going to bring to the table. I'm going to bring some organized labor people to the table. I'm going to bring some blue collar labor people to positions and tell them they can sit in chairs that normally they would be denied in a right to work state.
I love that. Nobody can lead us like a person that has been there.
That's right.
Experience is the best
Hey,
What's happening?
Thank you.
cheering is going on.
Cheering
is going
top
on.
of our goal.
I believe that might even be Jeremy Takes the House. I'm not sure, but
That's
he
him.
might be making all that noise. Hey, Jeremy.
That's Jeremy.
All right. Is it my turn?
Yes, ma'am. I believe so.
Okay. All right, Dr. Boyd, you've spoken on the need for Medicaid expansion and how much money it would bring into the state of Alabama, and our high maternal death rates. But another reason the birth rates may be declining in Alabama is because this state does not support women becoming mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Childcare is incredibly expensive and even absent in some places.
Mm-hmm.
Maternal mental health care is lacking, and there are no laws on private sector employers providing paid family leave.
Mm-hmm.
How important is this issue to you, and what could you do to make motherhood more attractive to women?
Mm-hmm. Alabama is struggling, as I said earlier, with maternal care and infant care. I've talked about increasing access to maternal and preventive care. I've talked about federally qualified healthcare centers in every county. I've been a lot of the last few days in counties where there is no healthcare center. I've been in Pickens County at least twice in the last 10 days. Now, they have a little building that has a nurse practitioner in it, but they don't have a hospital. So they have to go all the way to Mississippi or towards Tuscaloosa to get help. I've been in Butler County where they have to drive an hour. I've been in a number of counties below Shelby within a 1 hour drive where they are struggling. I've talked about people who have been actually in cars that rolled over, and they've been asked if they want to, Blount County, real story, phone a friend to drive them from the accident site 1 hour away to a hospital with cracked ribs, teeth knocked out, and perhaps some traumatic brain injury. This is unfortunate in 2026. That does not even go into the weeds to talk about the fact that there is very little OBGYN availability for women. And if you don't have access to healthcare centers, how do you get there if you don't have transportation? So here's what I've proposed. I propose, on top of what I've talked about from the expansion of Medicaid, improving healthcare outcomes. I've also talked about RABIT, a rapid bus transit system that will help move particularly women around so that they can get to their appointments on time. Also, high-speed rail is something that I would start with federal dollars coming even to us, but it's something that's going to take years and years for us to put in place. But it would allow a person who's in Pickens County to, through a rapid transportation system, to get towards high-speed rail that can eventually get them onto Birmingham, or even if need be, maybe even to Atlanta or someplace else for some specialized care. This is the way we have to start approaching healthcare for women, but also increase access to telehealth involves, again, me having that broadband in place by 2027 over 97% of the state. So again, look at the whole platform that I'm rolling out. It's all going to help women. Yes, the Affordable Health Care works, but it's also us putting other initiatives in place to help them have children that do thrive and succeed. It also involves having not elimination of food deserts. I've talked about those extensively over the weekend while I was traveling. I've talked about the fact that there are over 314,000 people in ambulatory deserts in Alabama. How is that possible? So if you're in an ambulatory desert, meaning you're over an hour away, over 45 minutes away from a hospital, and you are experiencing birth pains, won't go into the technical terms depending on the trimester you're in, but let's just say you feel like something is not going right with the pregnancy. You struggle to get to a provider. If you don't have the internet, you struggle to get to telehealth services. And sadly, if you don't have the money and you have that $700 a pop visit coming up, what are you going to do? It's sad, but that's where we are in Alabama, and that's why we are seeing the numbers we're seeing. So you're in an area that's very, very important to me. We have to protect our rural hospitals and our urban hospitals, but particularly our rural hospitals. This is where we're really seeing people really struggle in Alabama.
To piggyback off of that, what does rural healthcare look like to you?
Rural healthcare will look like it's equitable to the urban healthcare when I'm in office. But right now, unfortunately, even though there are both rural and urban hospitals that are in the sights of closing, rural hospital sometime, or rural healthcare sometimes, is a home remedy that someone has passed on. Healthcare in rural areas is sometimes somebody, again, visiting a small office that has one nurse practitioner, maybe a doctor or physician who's in the region every now and then. This is real stuff. This is happening today. I can take you. My wife and I made some trips this week I've personally been on trips through the national forest as late as last night, Talladega, and even in Pickens County on long roads that are 9 miles long. You don't see any lights. You may see one or two houses. You never see an ambulance. In Pickens County, they were excited about having one ambulance in the particular place where we're in over the weekend. So again, answer your question. I know I'm over 3 here now. Rural healthcare looks horrible in Alabama. It looks like 1926 instead of 2026. And that's why we have to fix this. That's why we need equity again in every county. It is unfortunate that where I'm sitting in Shelby County right now, that the hospital systems, I can go in any direction and pretty much get to a hospital and be taken care of within 15 minutes or so, or less. It's just all depending on me driving or an ambulance getting to me. But that's not the same thing in rural areas. So this is why, again, I keep fighting to make sure health care is available for all. It's ugly. I wish I could go into even greater detail, but we'll be here all night. You would not believe what the rural areas look like. There's some parts of Alabama that don't even look like they've been touched by modern day technology. And that goes back to education. There is a former superintendent that I could bring on the line right now who will tell you that when, I'll say she or he, but I know the gender, she or he was actually leading their school district less than 10 years ago. They were still using the same Bunsen burners that they used when she was in elementary and middle school. If we're not investing even in science at the elementary, middle school, high school level, how can we expect more of our children to get out and do well? Now, at the national level, we're in trouble. Please give me, may I borrow just a little bit of time from somebody else here for just a second? President Trump has determined, and I'm not knocking him right now, you don't even go in this direction, but that being a nurse is not a professional career or degree. Can you imagine that? If you have any type issue right now, heart attack, choke, I can give you technical names for it, but we're just talking around the table right now. First person you're going to see outside of somebody asking if you have insurance or a paramedic showing up on your doorstep is a nurse. He's going to take your vitals. They're going to see who the specialist is that should be called into the triage unit to assist you where you are. So think about this from a national level and a state level. We're going backwards. And so if that's at the national level, and Alabama's already like 1926 in some areas, you ask me, what does rural healthcare look like? It looks very bad.
That's why we need Dr. Boyd as a governor to get it better.
Yeah, my
Yes,
husband likes to say, Jesus didn't tell Lazarus, sorry, you're not in network.
That's right. That's right.
Jeremy Takes the House said earlier, he said, normalize health care.
Yes.
They want us in the workforce. They want us giving our lives over to working, but they don't want to give us health care so that we are taken care of. It
That's
Start
right.
a war. Can't
That's
do
right.
that. You actually went ahead and answered my question, but I'm changing it. I'm trying to think of a way to do it that's not going to upset TikTok. So Alabama famously enacted certain trigger laws that went into effect as soon as a major Supreme Court ruling was overturned in 2022. I think we all know what we're talking about.
We do.
So will you commit to basically undoing the damage that has been done in that regard and doing everything you can to overturn these laws, which are preventing women are literally dying. Even if they have access to an OB care, they're not able to get it, the necessary care they need.
Yes, ma'am. Excellent question. So here's what I say, no matter where I am. I believe in the sanctity of life. I also believe that it is a woman's decision as it relates to healthcare alongside her provider as to what she does with her body. So again, I'm trying to be careful with TikTok, but let me say this. I really believe people don't understand what the overturning did or what states like Alabama can face. And I didn't want to challenge anyone earlier, but what I'm seeing is it's not only Medicaid expansion and the lottery that people are agreeing on, but overall women are agreeing that they don't need government telling them what to do. Those are Republican women, those are Democratic women, those are independent women. And so we need someone in office who is doing what I'm doing right now. I might have a particular belief about how important it is for a person not to go to the chair or not to be put to death when he wasn't really the person who pulled the trigger. I might be presenting a public record or a press release saying how important it is to make sure that life is recognized, right? But here's the thing. There are women who are bleeding out on a toilet. I'm trying to be careful. Afraid to call a healthcare provider, afraid to call an OBGYN, because they don't know if whenever they present the fact that there's something going wrong and they're bleeding out, they don't want to be charged. Or maybe there's a OBGYN who's fearing if I proceed with a DNC or whatever it may be, that I could be locked up in a state like Alabama, right? And so we have to come to the table, like I said, with the lottery, a legislative session, and have a true discussion. I believe the reason why we're here right now is because that topic became a hot button topic, and it's how certain people remain in office today. Even the senator that I'm going to run against in the general election after this primary is over with, he has tried to push towards a statewide ban, right? Something that would be considered harsh or even much further than many even in the right may want to go. So that being said, that tells you that this is a political football. People are playing with women's lives. They're playing with the lives of Alabamians, and we have to stop looking at things from a political point of view and look at them passionately from a people point of view. And when we do that, case by case, I think people will stop being so black and white, left and right, up and down, and just say, look, this is a sensitive issue that must be addressed by a healthcare provider, and the government has no place, as Senator Warnock in our neighboring state of Georgia would say, being in the middle of that decision.
1,000,000%.
Thank you. It
love
shouldn't be
that.
that radical of a position.
Because the thing about it is, you can have a sanctity for life and also not be forcing births
Yeah,
and deaths
you can-
upon women.
Have sanctity of the mother's life.
Right. When does our life matter?
Yeah.
It's hugely important.
I've talked to a lot of women in the last few months who have struggled with healthcare crises. And because they have been wrongly assaulted, and any assault is bad, horrible, but we're talking about not just PTSD, but other things can follow behind that. But I've talked to a number of women who have been hurt badly by individuals. That resulted in going into a behavioral unit, that resulted in seeking healthcare treatment from a hospital, and I can go on and on and on. People don't stop to think about the particular life journey of that woman from that day forward. Every time she smells a cologne, every time she steps into a room and sees somebody with the last name or first name, that memory is still there. And so these are women who may go from being in a case where they're assaulted, being in a case where they were raped, to now they're in a state where they're saying, I'm suicidal. Suicidal ideation is there. So people have to, again, stop and look at the fact that there's trauma involved that they don't see beneath the skin. We love to make these general decisions and pass laws in these white marble buildings, marble floors, and stonewash places, institutions that just pretty, magnificent, right? High back chairs and all this furniture made by residential, I should say, inmates, incarcerated residents. And we don't have any regard for the person who's about to take their life because it was a father, an uncle, a cousin, or somebody they thought was a boyfriend who messed over their life.
Thank you.
It's got to be about people
Yeah.
in our lives.
And it's like, as a woman, it's like that's all we've been asking for is for people to see, like for our politicians to see us and not just the fact that we have a uterus.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Appreciate that, Dr. Boyd.
Appreciate you.
Sarah, we're going to quit cutting you off.
No.
I was like, and now we're going to totally shift gears to something.
As long as we don't go to the state bird being the yellowhammer or the mosquito, I'm good. We can keep.
Or
You know
flying
that answer
trampoline.
now.
It's a flying trampoline, according to James Spann.
Yeah.
Okay,
My
but
suspenders, where are they? I need to get them out.
then we get to something even more fun.
Yeah.
Masters. All right,
Well, yeah, we've talked a lot tonight about issues that cross party lines, but one that affects every single Alabamian is disaster preparedness. Our state faces hurricanes on the Gulf Coast, devastating tornadoes across central Alabama, and winter storms in the north. Severe weather isn't hypothetical, it's guaranteed. Given the uncertainty around federal disaster assistance and the reality that Alabama relies heavily on federal support, what is your strategy for managing a major natural disaster? And how would you handle multiple disasters occurring close together when state resources are already stretched thin?
Yeah. Let me say this first. Alabama is what I've called a welfare state. For every dollar we give to the federal government, we're asking for 2, 3, or 4 back. So that's not good. I believe we should be self-sufficient. And so I've talked to people in the last 11 months about something that's equivalent to our own FEMA, but beyond what we already have in Alabama, to where we already prepare each county, each state to actually move into an emergency management preparedness state where they have the resources already close to their county in a region, so that you don't have to worry about people being dispatched to assist Alabama Power or TVA with fallen lines during a crisis from other states. Of course, we take all the help we can get, but I'm just saying if we are prepared now, that helps. So I've started talking to elected officials. I've talked to some people who've worked with FEMA already about ways that they can even save money by preparing Alabamians right now. I've talked to, as recently as 2 weeks ago, someone in Blount County about how we need to have a system that is statewide that will allow everyone to communicate as it relates to emergency systems right now. Right now, I'm going back to Blount County, and I don't want to blow the cost, but we're talking about just a county-wide emergency management system costing in the millions for that particular county that may already be struggling. So this has to be something that, as governor, I roll out at a statewide level where funding is available for every county to, again, communicate. I would love, beyond ALEA, the Alabama Law Enforcement Association, to also have where they are in sync with other organizations that are able to help prepare the state for dealing with crises. Yes, I talk about how biodiverse our state is, but it is very well possible to have freezing rain, sleet, hail, tornadoes in North Alabama. And to your point, talk about flooding in Mobile, Alabama in the South. It happens. It happens. 2 at one time, a tornado in Tuscaloosa, regrettably, or some flooding again in Mobile. That happens. So we have to be prepared for that. And I think we are today. I'll give credit and say I think the state is at a level that can sustain and do well if we have a crisis. I'm not worried about that, but I think there's a way to do it more efficiently. And that's, first of all, improving our communication systems from county to county. That's step one. Step two, making sure that we have enough resources in place as it relates to food banks. We call it storm prepping, but making sure that we have even food that is available should there be a crisis. We have right now what I call emergency crises. I'm over 3, but bear with me. Right now in Chambers County, the water is black. That's an emergency. That's not a hurricane. That's not a tornado. That's not flooding, lightning strike. We have black, dirty water because of infrastructure. That's an emergency to me. That's a problem for me in Chambers County, Lowndes County, same problem. That's an emergency. 25,000 people right now today, over 25,000 people are right now in sewage crisis in Alabama. That's an emergency. And so it's not just when we have, again, these natural disasters, but what are we doing about the problems we have now? I'm asking people, if you show me water this dark, like black coffee or some Coke without anything in it, then are you bathing in that? I ask them, if you run the bathtub long enough, does eventually the black water turn clear, translucent or something? You'd be surprised how Alabamians are living. And so, yeah, I have a plan for the emergency management for natural disasters, but Alabama has some disasters right now that we need to fix. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why, if we can send billions abroad, why, if we don't mind helping other states with their struggles, why is Alabama continuously being left behind? That's a problem for me.
And why do we keep allowing it and voting for it?
That's the question.
It is a question. I said
We hate
earlier,
ourselves just as much as our current leadership seems to hate us.
well, let's go back to where we started. My opponent on the Republican side, and I hate to do this because I believe there are 3 running in the Republican primary, so let's be fair. Let's just say whoever comes out of Republican primary is the presumptive nominee. They may sit on $8 million. When you look at all of the Democratic candidates running for governor, you can't get $2 million with all of us put together. You might have the lion's share with one particular candidate. Because people look at the candidates with the most money, they're saying they're the ones that can provide the solution. But let me stop for a second. Let's look at this. The Republican right now who has the $8 million is the one who does not want to move Alabama forward. He's the one who wants to put $1.3 billion in cages or prisons rather than on our children. He's the one who wants the statewide ban we just mentioned. He's the one who wants to push back and roll back policies that are going to make us slide further backwards than forward. So you have to ask yourself, why do we tend to say the people with the most money are going to win? Can they buy commercials that convince us? Do they buy subliminal messages we can't see? No, we keep voting against our interest. We've got to start standing up and voting for people or getting behind people that we believe in. If you have a candidate, use me as an example, who has a little bit of money, $2, and I'm being funny, but $2, but you believe in my platform, don't say, I like Will, but I'm going with party C because I just think they have a better chance at winning against Tommy.
Yes.
That's not a good way of thinking. You need to vote for people who you believe can fight for you. If everybody collectively came together, there are 5.8 million people. If everybody collectively came together, I know everybody's not of age to donate, but if everybody came together and were politically involved, we could see a whole new Alabama. And that's where I'm trying to go right now. Let's take the focus off the money. Let's take it off the name recognition. Let's quit focusing on what people did in the past and look at what people tell you they can do in the future. I've laid a plan down for if there's anything you can say about me that you don't like, you can say I'm a long-winded engineer, whatever, who has a plan to move things forward. I would rather deal with somebody who is like that rather than dealing with somebody who's just said, oh, you got to follow me because of what I did, or follow me because of what I've raised, or follow me because of the title that I have. No, sir. We've tried that before and it didn't work. So we're ready for something new.
We absolutely are, Dr. Boyd. I think everybody that's in this live, everybody that's watching and listening, if we all are a united front, then name recognition and money and all that stuff is not going to matter. We can change this state if we come together and get behind Dr. Boyd. You see his plan, you hear his plan. You spoke briefly, I think, before on the prison, but you have gone in depth on your plan for prison reform, which is close to my heart. But Alabama has a prison population that is higher than some small countries. Is
Yeah,
granting clemency for nonviolent offenders with excessive sentences something that you would do after you're elected?
absolutely. You know, there's a gentleman right now who's on death row, who will, if nothing changes, see an execution. Uh, Clemency was begged by the people who some were on the jury and even family members, and still yet the governor has not moved in that direction. I respect the will of the people. I respect the judicial system. I respect juries. But right now we have a lot of people who are in our prison pipeline who, I'm not just talking about death row, but in our prison pipelines, who may have been convicted of something based on how Alabama views violent versus nonviolent crime. If you haven't seen the Alabama solution, go see it. But at the federal level, if there are 4 ways that you could be categorized, considered a violent criminal, it ought to stun you that Alabama has over 50. Let me say that again. At the federal level, 4 ways, generally speaking, you're considered violent, a violent offender. But in Alabama, there are over 50 ways you can be considered a violent offender. That's the way I wanted to come out, so you can get it. So you can have a person who may have, in any other state, done something that was a nonviolent decision that went wrong, right? But they are now being treated as a violent offender, and who knows where that goes. Right now, I could be sitting in a parking lot of a mall, and somebody could jump into my car and say, drive. And all of a sudden, if something went wrong that I had no clue about, I could actually be considered an accomplice to a violent crime. And before I know it, eventually wind up on death row. Now, I'm taking these things to an extreme because I've talked to people who've gone from a traffic violation to now wanting parole. I've talked to people who are retiring from unions, tells you how old they are, and they just got their parole a little while ago, a pardon a little while ago. So why do we keep hanging pardons or parole issues over people's heads? So here's what I do. I talk about PTSD, talk about presumptive paroles for people who are over 55 who have nonviolent sentences, people who are showing that they're trying to get educated while incarcerated, people who show no signs of any type of altercations behind bars. They've shown signs of, again, being an awesome citizen while they're incarcerated. Those are people you want at 55 moving into a presumptive parole area. On top of that, as governor, I want to push a rapid review of all those individuals. The truth be told, if we just allowed through clemency, through pardoning, through parole, if we had just 20,000 people out of the system, transition safely, stabilize back in their community, we're talking about $300 million savings in like 3 or 4 years in Alabama. That's a lot of money. So we are spending a lot of money at the tune of probably $1 billion plus a year on trying to incarcerate in Alabama when we don't need to in the first place. So yes, presumptive pardonings, putting a cap on technical violations, making sure that there's a 60-day review of people who are up for parole, a 7-day written notice following that, and even another a second chance or a second look by an outside agency who's looking in to see why they were denied parole. And then going back to where we started, I can't remember if it was Michelle or Catherine, but talking about that data-driven approach at the end, making sure that we have a dashboard that shows who's in the prison system and who needs to be moved or transition out. So yeah, those are all things, clemency, one of them that I think we need to rely more on. When we only have 3 people making parole decisions, 3 in the whole state, 3. Did I say 3 yet? 3. How in the world do we expect to clear that pipeline? It's going to be backed up forever. So that's why we need change in Alabama.
Love it.
I agree with that. I want to touch back on where you were talking about the name recognition, if you will. Now, you and I have spoken before about trying to get the young people engaged in the world of politics. Why should a young person who feels disconnected from politics trust you?
Well, I usually try to give them an opportunity to say what they want to see, what they are interested in. I have found when I talk to younger people, they don't want to talk about the economy, healthcare, or communities. They might want to talk about the environment. They're concerned about clean water, clean air. So I just talk about issues that are important to them. If it's a younger voter, they might have considerations of equality and fairness in mind. I was surprised weeks ago when I visited a local college campus. Again, it wasn't the economy, healthcare, or community. It was the Epstein files and the lack of transparency, or how we can have people who are above the law. This is what our young people are concerned about. This two Americas, if you want to call it that. How we have it one way over here and a totally different way over there. They're concerned. And so the apathy, the people not being involved, young people not taking interest in politics, is because they can spot phonies in a second. They see when you're real. And so, what I do to help people get past their fears, I walk them through the process. I told you I'm a pastor and a bishop. Today, I had 3 young ladies who were afraid of going into a baptismal pool because of how it looked. So you know what I did after church? I walked them in my vestments back behind the curtain, walked them upstairs that would have been scary to them, walked them down into a baptismal pool that looked frightening if it had water in it, and said, here's what we're going to do. Show them what I would say, show them how I would take them under and bring them out, how it walked them back up the stairs and walk out. And you know what? They were like, okay, this is not bad at all. I'm ready. Now let's bring that to politics or bring it to government. I think we should have more young people who are on school buses come to Montgomery, see how the legislative process works. I'm talking about elementary school students, and see what happens again at the State House, the governor's mansion, or whatever it may be. Visit some of the places in Montgomery, and when they start to see again how things work, they'll take an active role in it. Lastly, I spoke to some Future Farmers of America while I was in Montgomery recently, and I talked to them about, they said, well, can you give us any advice before they jumped on their bus to go home? I said, listen to people, learn to be a good public servant, recognize that people have different opinions, but when you're there to serve them, you have to put your opinions aside for a minute, put them first, and work towards things that are important to them. And they were excited about that. So that's how I'm bringing young people on board. Peyton. I'm proud to say he's on board with us. I appreciate him. He even spoke in Huntsville. I think more younger people need opportunities. I'll close with this part of the answer. I was in a Kiwanis event last night with the governor-elect who will be installed in the Birmingham area in a month. But a week ago, I was with the Kiwanis in Hueytown. And before I spoke to them, as did other candidates, including gubernatorial candidates, I explained to them, and I could reach for it and get it right now, but I have a Kiwanis award that I received for what we call an oratory contest, even while in elementary school. So I guess when we have opportunities to get involved with public service, and even then, as a young kid, I don't even think I was 12 years old, my first speech was to serve with pride. I still have the speech on a shelf in front of me. I have the medal and even the certificate that I received before I was 12. It is a reminder even to me today that I got involved at a young age. I had the opportunity in college to serve as an aide to a representative. That meant after I left my engineering classes, I ran to the state capitol. And I call it an aide, but it's technically a page. Whatever my representative needed, state representative needed, I ran errands for her. That gave me a chance to see lawyers on the floor. I mean, people on the floor, senators and representatives on the floor, how those lawmakers, is what I was trying to say, moved and did things. I'll admit I was shocked even then as a young person. But again, even that sparked an interest back then in me being a person who's going to lead our state forward today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And you had talked about your education background, and I'm an educator. My wife is as well. one of the things that I hear from the younger generation, especially some of my former students that graduate and they're off to college and they're trying to get into the workforce, is young people don't feel like they're succeeding in our state. Uh,
No.
and so, how do we get young people to stay here in the state of Alabama? What can we do to make them say, okay, Alabama is somewhere where I can be successful? You know, maybe start a business, have a family, etc. What is something that Dr. Board would do for?
So I was speaking. Thank you, sir. I was speaking in a restaurant in let me see, Franklin County about 3 weeks ago on this very subject about the fact that we have to have opportunities for our children to go to school, graduate from high school, and not have to leave the county, but can actually work in the county that they were born and raised. Right now, a lot of our counties are not equitable in terms of opportunities. And so you may be raised in, like I said, Franklin County, but have to go towards Jefferson County or perhaps Madison County to get the type of income you want. We want to see where there is a revival of not just blue collar work, but agricultural work. It could be not necessarily a textile mill, but a business within each county that would allow students to stay where they grew up. Right now, they're getting their education, high school level, and they're leaving. I call it brain drain. I'm fighting that with what we call brain gain. And what I propose, Rod, is that we have a public service loan forgiveness program for people like yourself. So as you teach in critical needs areas, as you are a teacher, an educator in your county, as long as you stay there and work there, we'll reduce your student loan by $15,000 a year. That will ensure that somebody like yourself doesn't have to even move to another state in order to have the same comparable dollars being paid to you that you deserve. It's not fair that you educate the engineer, the doctor, the lawyer, the realtor, whoever it may be, but you're lagging behind. It's not fair that around Christmas time, educators like you, Representative Smith, are in places where you have to work not only at school 8 to 5, but you have to turn around and go work in a mall or go do a little side hustle, driving around, doing Uber, whatever it may be, door dashing, so that you can actually put food on your table. That's not the way it should be. It should be, again, that our educators are trained here, stay here, and can raise their families here. So those are creative ways. I'm again pushing for brain gain instead of brain drain, creating opportunities for Alabamians here. At the larger level, with the stronger jobs, the statewide plan to grow incomes, to expand, as I said, these opportunities. I think we have to look at, again, higher skill set, higher paying jobs, not just bringing in a lot of, I hate to use the term, but Dollar General jobs, or not just bringing in a data center that might only employ 100 people. And I know some people have some strong feelings about data centers, and we may or may get to that. Of course, that's a whole nother conversation. But the point I'm making is, when you bring in a massive facility that drains a lot of resources, that runs up power bills, that requires a lot of water, and yes, we're pro technology, but it only hires 100 people that they may bring in from somewhere else. What did that do to our community? So these are things that we have to think about creatively. Again, educating our kids so that they can succeed in the zip code they were raised.
100%. Yeah, I know this is on Cat.
I can read some of the comments. Somebody did say I can't read. I can see comments. I'm looking. I'm reading as I'm answering questions, but I see them. I'm going to answer them whenever you all present them to me, just for the record.
I think we got just a couple more from the panel. I was looking at Rod's. I think he kind of touched on competing against the other candidate with name recognition earlier. I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate more on that, but Kat's got another question.
Kat.
Sorry, I didn't realize I'd muted it. There's a lot of people out there saying that we need a moderate candidate in Alabama since it is such a red state. They say that basically true progress can never happen. Why are they wrong?
Because if you look at New York, if you look at Louisiana, if you look at parts of Georgia, I can keep on going with the states, the people who are bold and proud to be progressive, proud to stand on their platform, which we know about, provides a lot of the programs that I talked about today. Uh, those are the ones who are winning right now. It's not somebody who compromises. Now, I know how to, as governor, recognize I work for the whole state and not half the state, but you need somebody who is going to be a true Democrat, not only in a Democratic primary, but somebody who's going to come with Democratic ideals while they're in office. Right now, people are changing their ideas, pandering, almost looking like Republican light in order to woo people and win people over. And if we see that already, then why will we be surprised if they become the nominee and mess around and you can't tell the difference between a Tommy Tuberville and a somebody else? I'll just stop right there. So you want somebody who is going to provide a contrast, somebody who's fighting for you, somebody who believes in you, somebody who shows again that they want to step up and be for you. So yeah, they are wrong. Look at me. I'm a proud Democrat. Now, some people can't tell whether I'm a Democrat or not. They don't know. This is what people say. People say, I don't know if, and this is a true fact. Somebody told a secretary of mine, said, hey, I don't know if he's a Republican or a Democrat, but I like that man. All right. That's a compliment to me, because I don't try to speak in every sentence as if I'm a Democrat. I speak as I'm a practical progressive and say, here's what we can do to make Alabama better. And do I understand conservatism? Sure, I do. Look, being an African-American man, trying my best to make ends meet from time to time and not always having enough coming in to meet what I have to face going out. Look, I have to be conservative. I have to know how to make a dollar out of 15 cents, as we used to say. That is to a degree conservatism, right? I know how to be fiscally responsible. When you don't have but $2 coming in, you have to be able to take $2 and make it look like 100. I get it. That's what grandmas understand. Kitchen table issues, right? They can feed 20 people with what other people use to feed 2. That's being fiscally responsible. That's being, to a degree, entrepreneurial. At the end of the day, though, I have no problems telling you I'm a bold Democrat. Been the Democratic nominee 3 times in Alabama. Now, some people might say, well, that's a perennial candidate. You know what I say to that? That's somebody who is rooted, resilient, and ready. An annual plant will come up and bloom and die. That's somebody who is just planted because they want to be seen. They want to burst out and be right there, radiant, bright in front of you for a primary or for a general election, and then they're gone. There are some candidates who lose in Alabama and then they leave and go to another state. You don't see them for 3 or 4 years. And then there's some like myself who will lose, but I still keep coming back. A perennial plant comes out, it tries to bloom, and maybe it does, but then it looks like it dies. Through the winter, you don't see it. But it has a nice, sophisticated root system that's even holding the soil together underground so that there's no shifting underground. You have a group that's solidifying, getting tighter. So as I'm a perennial candidate, if that's what you want to call me, I'm the person who's rooted so deep that I'm helping to pull the party together. I elevate other Democratic candidates. I encourage people to get involved with the process. I tell people, you may fall, but get back up. You may get beat, but don't stop. You're going to be a winner. Keep going. And then after being rooted, I'm resilient. Resilient plants come back year after year after year after year. And when they face the natural disaster, so to speak, go through the rains, go through the tornadoes, go through the hurricanes, guess what? They're ready for the next season. That's who I am. So long answer when I should have given you a short one. My long answer is we need more people who are rooted, resilient, and ready to face Alabama. Every time I ran, it gave me an opportunity to get our roots together, to hold our team together. Every time I ran, it gave me an opportunity to talk to Alabamians in 67 counties. I was in Clark County last night. Clark County, and they were apologizing. Some people saying, I know you had to come a long ways. Yeah, I had to make a 6-hour round trip. And I only spoke less than a minute. But I didn't have to speak. My presence there was enough. I'm getting ready for my job. When I'm governor, I'm going to go to Clark County. When I'm governor, I'm going to Pickens County. When I'm governor, I'm going to Lowndes County. I'm not trying to be a flash bang right now. I'm not trying to be famous. I don't care if I never get interviewed. Don't care if my name never gets in the history book. All I'm trying to do is move Alabama into the 21st, 22nd, 23rd century. I'm trying to say we don't have to be backwards anymore. We can do a whole lot better. So as an engineer, we imagine a lot. We build a lot. My friends, we don't have to imagine a better Alabama. Get yourself a Democratic person like myself who's progressive, but yet sensitive to people on every level and in every party to move our state in a different direction.
Absolutely. Love
All
that.
right. I was ready to say
I was
glory.
like, slow
Am I
clap.
gonna have to
wrong.
holler an
You're wrong.
amen up in here?
Amen.
I'll give you one, Dr. Boyd. Amen.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
I want to close out with an important question here, Dr.
Yes,
Boyd.
sir.
What is one promise you would make to Alabama's next generation?
That I will always listen. I have a talk principle that I abide by. I try to always listen before I talk, but I will always be an active listener. I believe it's important as an engineer to listen to what the problem is. When people have problems in any of the plants I worked in or outside the United States, any facilities I walked through, it was up to me and my team to fix the problem. And so I couldn't fix it by just jumping in, looking at it, but I talked to a person who may have been there all day long, understood what they go through, and then I created a fix for it. As a person who may be a therapist or a community organizer, I have to spend my time listening to people that I don't charge and say, hey, where do you want to go in life? Kind of like your GPS. Where do you want to go versus where you are today? And then I try to abide by what I call a path goal theory. Based on what I heard you say you want to go, let me move any barriers out of the way. Let me help you achieve your dream. Let me help you become successful, preparedness and connectedness again. And then beyond being, again, the person who's the business-minded person or the engineer, the therapist, all those wonderful things, that hospital board person, at the end of the day, and then really the beginning, I'm a husband. My wife and I will be married 28 years this June. We have 3 children. 2 are in college. One is about to come out as a senior. One is halfway through. Another 12-year-old, I jokingly say, going on 22. So I'm held accountable every day. I have a responsibility on my mind every day. If I'm going to talk to young people as I do with my kids, I'm going to treat every Alabamian young person like they're my very own. When a young lady or a young man is struggling, I'm going to try to help them fix it like they have Boyd as their last name. That's who I am. That's what I do. And so that's the promise I make. I'll listen. I'll be there for them. And prayerfully, I'll give them the right solution, working with my team to move them forward.
Amen to that.
That's good. I don't know if there were extra questions in the comments. I think we touched on most of them. Kat, do you know of any that we might have
Hey,
missed?
Justin, can you bring me your list? Hang on.
Oh, I saw
Somebody
one.
mentioned
one
gerrymandering
right
a few
now.
seconds ago,
Yeah.
and our state
All
is
right.
has been gerrymandered. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but again, that's why it's important to elect people who have your best interests at heart.
Mhm.
Obviously, our state has had people who have didn't mind drawing lines unfairly. They disregard the Voting Rights Act and had that salamander look, drawing maps that don't look right. We have, even at local levels, I've gone into city councils sessions or meetings with people and explained what we call stacking and packing, and how we have to avoid just people's interests being cut out, literally and figuratively. But as it relates to gerrymandering, when we elect people who are looking out for us, obviously that can help us as a people, whether we are of any different race or background, to be represented. So that's very important. I think somebody asked the salary of healthcare workers when we bring in Medicaid expansion. That will be part of that. I talked about uncompensated care. That's important. We can talk about nursing staff ratios. We talk about faculty student ratios, but right now we have a lot of nurses who are carrying so many patients that they're exhausted. They're not being compensated for it. So yeah, just like the elevation of teacher pay, nursing's pay needs to go up as well. So those are the ones that I've seen. Have either of you seen any ones that I've missed so far? I can scroll back.
There's been a couple of questions, so I'll kind of lump these into one. You talked about things like high-speed rail, expanding broadband, all these things. The long and short of it is, how are we going to pay for it?
Well, right now, the federal government offers Alabama federal dollars right now if we would get started with high-speed rail. We've just left that money on the table for years, so money is already available. Now, we have obviously need to raise capital or need to get money to the table to complete the projects, but we're not even taking advantage of the money that is there. I can't remember every project that you just mentioned, but expansion of Medicaid, 22.8 million. That's all we invest. We get 394 million back immediately, $2 billion back in new revenues. 200,000 people that are not working go to work. I mean, you can see the return on the investment. When you look at the lottery, even though that may take a year after I'm governor to get implemented, anywhere upwards of 800 million to $1 billion of revenue coming in. That's how we pay for it. I mentioned on the Alabama Department of Corrections, when we have the clemency, the paroles, and we're bringing out 20 to 30,000 people. I told you within 3 years, I'm bringing a savings of $300 million. So I can beyond pay for it. I'm actually going to move Alabama out of the red towards the black. And that's why I think people are afraid of me becoming governor.
Awesome. Another one is, would you regulate AI in the state, and how?
Well, AI, first of all, say I'll embrace technology. I think AI definitely has to be regulated, but I think that we have to make sure that as we embrace technology, we also look at one of the main concerns are the data centers. People are concerned right now where they're being placed. They're concerned about the tremendous amount of water that is required to cool, obviously, them down. As you all know the process, a lot of heat involved. Also, people are concerned about the cost being pushed to the customers that are right there in those communities. And I mentioned earlier the lack of employing people that are in those communities. So we need to be pro-technology, but also be environmentally aware of the cost. I would like to see a closed loop water system or a water treatment plant right near a data center, or its ability when they come in with the portfolio to plant one, that they have already in mind what they're going to do to improve the environment. Our whole way of thinking as we move forward, we didn't have time to talk about, I think maybe Kat, Michelle, we talked about a little bit, but I've tied my environmental policy in with my economic policy. And until we start thinking that way, that the environment is just as important as the economy, people are going to continue to do things that will cost us in the long run. We need to be better stewards of our environment.
Definitely. And then one of the other ones was healthcare monopoly. I can't read your handwriting. Okay, what does this say?
And while you're deciphering that, pump hydro is important. Energy is important. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about on Thursday at 10 o'clock. So please tune in. I'm going to talk about kilowatt hours. I'm going to talk about TVA. I'm going to talk about Alabama Power. I'm going to talk about PSC for a minute. I'm going to talk about the different embracing of different energy systems are in Alabama, coal, solar, geothermal, again, pump hydro. All of those are coming up, ways we can ultimately save Alabama money while remaining competitive and operating in this capitalistic environment that we're in.
100%. Okay, you got one more question?
Yeah, it was kind of a summary question, Dr. Boyd. How y'all doing?
Hey,
What does a year one Will Boyd term look like in your ideal scenario?
In my ideal scenario, you have 3 different councils that are in place, primarily an economic council, a healthcare council. You have also a community council. You have a better nexus between ALEA, Alabama Law Enforcement Association, the chiefs, The DAs and local communities, they're safer. Year number one, you're going to start to see that $300 million return coming in. You're going to start to see where we're already starting to implement the expansion of Medicaid. You're going to see year number one where the plan is already in place and we're moving towards the referendum for the lottery, educational lottery to move in place. You're going to start to see year one where every concern the state had for a drying up of revenues, all of a sudden to see that more money is coming in than was projected. So we're going to turn that around. So we're going to be, though people don't like the term, more fiscally responsible, but actually a more prosperous state in year number one. You're also going to see something I didn't talk about tonight. I've talked a lot about how African Americans lag behind their counterparts by 500 years. You're going to see where we're going to close that 500-year gap, which is due primarily to healthcare costs and also to land ownership. We're going to reduce that 500-year gap, eliminate it in 1 year of me being in office. Now, you can say I make a lot of promises, but I already have executive orders already written. Matter of fact, I have a notebook in front of me right now that I can pull them out and start reading them to you. I have them on iPads around me. So I'm very, very serious about this and us moving forward. It's going to be a different Alabama. It's going to be a different Alabama. So please, you all, check out my plan, where I want to go, what I want to do. And I think you're going to be very excited. I have even in front of me, and I'm reaching down for just a second to say I have a first 100 days sheet in front of me as well. First 100, day one, launch workforce, health and community safety councils, appoint experienced ethical leaders, cut red tape that slows jobs and care. First 30 days, closing the healthcare gap, protecting rural hospitals, expanding mental health, accelerating broadband infrastructure. First 60 days, expanding job training, apprenticeships, supporting small businesses, tying incentives to local hiring and wages, expanding telehealth access. First 100 days, public safety and justice reform, reentry and second chance employment, child care and family support, expansion, and even publishing our public progress by day 365. So that's how we're going to roll the first year. We're going to move so fast, it's going to make people say, I don't know what just happened to Alabama, but I'm moving there. I want to be a part of it.
We are here for it.
I got a question real quick. Dr. Wilboy, can you explain to people what fiscal responsibility actually means? So like when we look at being fiscally responsible, it's not just about tightening the belts, not spending any money.
Right.
What does that actually mean for you when you talk about fiscal responsibility?
Well, you heard me earlier say it about 3 or 4 times. We have more coming in from the federal than leaving. In other words, we depend more on the federal government to sustain us than we are to make it on our own. We need to be fiscally responsible in that we're self-sufficient. We're spending less than we bring in. We are aware of our revenues versus our expenditures. We are creating new revenue streams so that we don't have to even go to the federal government for help. We are already in a place where we have what we need. Fiscally responsible means different things to different people, but from a fiscal or monetary policy, usually in economics, are the two different terms that we look at versus money supply versus how you're handling budgets or money. Fiscally responsible, again, means you're looking at what you have available, looking at where you want to go, and budgeting, preparing yourself for it, for a rainy day, setting aside money so that you're able to do well and you're able to succeed.
And would you also include understanding like your return on investment, that it's not just about not investing in money, but understanding how you invest that money and what that return means, not only to the state as a whole, but the people within that community. So it could be a social program that has a high return of investment. It's not just about cutting funds to look green on a piece of paper somewhere.
Right. And that's fiscally responsible has become a bad words because that's the way it looks. Whether you're seeing somebody come in and slash everything on the budget at one time, or you're seeing somebody saying we're going to slash SNAP funding, supplemental nutrition assistance program, or Meals on Wheels. You're seeing somebody just doing cuts across the board to everything. That's not fiscal responsibility. That's just somebody just, like you said, tightening the belt or cutting things out. You have to be strategic. There are some things that we do in Alabama right now that we don't need to do. There are some ways in which we penalize people, and we don't allow people to be entrepreneur. I already mentioned the hemp ban, right? And what happened to them, but even certifications. Let's just say the cost of certifications. If you want to be a barber or a beautician in Alabama, there's a cost associated with you having a license, and those licensing fees are very high in Alabama. So you have a lot of people who are barely making it in their small businesses, feeling like with all the cost and requirements of maintaining a business at the governmental level under the Secretary of State's office, which is under, part of the administration, it's hard for businesses to see. I would go in as governor and say, well, let's look at how much this paperwork is costing us. Let's look at what we're really benefiting by this amount of licensing requirements. Let's see how we can adjust that so that ultimately we can have more people opening businesses, because that will in turn bring more revenue to the state. So when I talk about being responsible from a fiscal point of view, again, I'm talking about looking at things, to your point, down in the weeds and seeing what we do that works, what we do that doesn't. There are going to be some things I'm going to cut out at the governmental level, not that hurt the people, but things that the government may be doing that aren't beneficial to the people. And so we constantly have to reevaluate that and make sure that's the way our government is operating.
Perfect. Anybody got anything else? We don't want to keep him here all night.
Speaking of money, can I
Yeah, we
tell
got our
you?
wheel bills.
A wheel bill. I want to keep Alabama safe. But one of the things I talk about is the key that's on here. The key represents safety, accessibility. I want to make sure that we can secure jobs, secure justice, keeping people safe. The A represents obviously accessibility of the healthcare. The F, fairness. Really want to make sure people feel things are fair. So there's a scale on here, as is on other currency, that's associated with fairness. But on the back of the bill, we talk about the things we talked about tonight, that is people over the politics. It is about being a people generated campaign, not a money generated campaign. So there's a word in this bill here, everyone. It's about seeking justice, seeking jobs, accessibility of healthcare, fairness across the board, education, fairness, opportunities to succeed and do well, even after you've spent a life perhaps in prison, or maybe you've worked hard and want to play hard. Blue collar, white collar, no collar, doesn't matter. But everyone should have a shot at feeling that they're in a place where they can succeed and do well. So that's what this campaign is about. And I hope people will join me as I seek to push to make sure that we do well on every level. There's a screenshot you're going to see coming up soon that talks about a fair shot, opportunity for everyone, equal chance to succeed, and freedom to build a better life. That's what I'm fighting for in Alabama.
All right.
Perfect.